Hey everybody, welcome to the Hey Everybody podcast. This is episode 49 and I'm positive this week. Last week I wasn't sure if we were 47, 48. This is episode 49, week 49. In my head, there's an important number coming up. I just can't decide if it's next week when we hit 50 episodes, if that's significant, or if I wait 2 more weeks and mark 52 episodes, which is a full year. I don't know. So much about 2020 into 21 was about doing things that felt right and then being kind of surprised by how long those things lasted. I don't think when I started this podcast that I thought I would do it for a whole year. The first episode I did, I didn't even know if it was a podcast. It was just something I was trying out. There was not as much planning as you might think. But people who watch this probably know exactly how much planning there is in it. I also did this from the very beginning of quarantine. I did a song a day live from my house. And I ended up doing 100 days of that, which again was not initially the plan, but seeing that people were getting something out of it and that I was getting something out of it, I decided to keep it going. And I do have this thing for if I see a certain number or milestone in sight, I have a hard time not going for it. I think I was starting to feel a little fatigued with the daily songs in like the late 70 count of days, but I realized like, oh man, if I keep going, I could hit 100 songs in 100 days. It actually ended up being 99 songs in 100 days because there was a thing called Blackout Tuesday that I participated in. But 100 days, that's something. This will also, if we're talking about significant milestone podcast events, this might be my last podcast before I play live again. This comes out on Wednesday, and the next day on Thursday, I'm doing a live stream from Hyde Music here in Appleton to raise money for Feeding America. And I don't know if people are going to be encouraged to attend in person or if it's just a live stream. But in either case, I'll put the link on my Facebook pages, so if you want to watch it from wherever, you can. But if people are encouraged to come, it will officially be my first show back in 459 days. I'm just playing a quick half hour early in the afternoon. I play 11:30 to noon. But that's a good feeling. I'm anxious to get back to it. I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to play some solo shows and meet some people and tell some stories. I'm excited to play with my band. We've been rehearsing and that's been feeling really good. And I'm excited for how different the band shows are from the solo shows and the energy and all that kind of stuff. I was lamenting to Tori that it seems like I'll be the last person to play a show. Everybody else I know has played one so far. And it's funny how comparison works. Like, I was kind of at peace when I thought my first show back was going to be on June 28th in Galena, Illinois. And then for most of June, I've been seeing other people play, and all of a sudden, June 28th wasn't right. It had to be sooner. I wanted it to be sooner so bad. And maybe that was unavoidable, but maybe it has something to do with seeing other people do the thing I want to be doing. I went through a phase, actually, where I couldn't even enjoy going to a concert because I so badly wanted to be on stage. You know, the year before the pandemic, I want to say 2019, I made a point, maybe 2018 and 2019, I made a point to just go see some shows and just enjoy them. And they were great. I went and saw a lot of like heavier bands. I went and saw Every Time I Die and Hollow Earth and Me Without You and Pianos Become the Teeth. And then we also saw like Ryan Adams and Emmylou Harris. We saw explosions in the sky just before, I think, the pandemic, and we saw Ryan Bingham. And I just was trying to reconnect with the fan part of myself rather than the ambitious part of myself, and remind myself how good it feels to just be excited to see a band you love come out on stage, and to go to the merch table, and to not know what song they're going to play next, and all that really fun stuff that I felt like my desire to play was sort of taking away from me, or I was letting it cover up sometimes. So that was fun. And I'm looking forward to doing that more. In fact, though I miss playing live terribly, one of the things I've really been looking forward to the most was a date with my wife. Because we hadn't been out on a date in over a year. And on Friday, we went out on what felt like a real date. Wednesday was our 15-year wedding anniversary. And that was great. My joke was, I'm celebrating 15 wonderful years of marriage. Tori is celebrating about 3.5 non-consecutive. No, we're very much in love, and it's as cartoonish and ridiculous as you might think. And we were celebrating 15 years together. So on Friday, Ollie went to the grandparents and had a sleepover, and I took my wife out to a nice dinner, and then we stopped by a local like outdoor venue / bar and had a couple drinks and watched a friend's band play. And that was wonderful. It was wonderful to get that back, you know. I still, in so many ways, the way I feel about her is deeper now, and it obviously should be. But I also have this kind of excitement about her that has not dimmed in 15 years, which I'm under the impression is fairly unique amongst people that have been married for 15 years. But I regularly, back when the world was regular, I had the opportunity to stand on stage, sometimes in a room full of people. And because I was on stage, I got to see everybody, and I would see her, and like 13 years into marriage, I could honestly say, like, that's the girl I would go talk to after this show. So it was great to get back out with her and reconnect as people, and not as husband and wife or parents or, whatever. We tried our best to not. It's a fun challenge to take someone that you've been married to for 15 years out on a date and kind of try to treat it like it's your first or second or third date, Plus, if you get a kiss at the end, it makes it that much more exciting. So that was great, and I'm really happy we got to do that. And the next thing I really want to do is play music for people, and that's coming up too, and that feels really good. Our evening out, like I said, included a show, and it was interesting because I'm a remarkably small deal, but in Appleton, in the place where I live, sometimes I meet people that I don't know that have enjoyed some of my music or watch this podcast, hello, or read things that I write and put on the internet. And I met some very wonderful people on Friday that I did not know previous. I also got to see some old friends, and that was great, and it was just great to see people. But I met a few people I didn't know, and they had very nice things to say about my music and about my writing. And that felt really good, but I was really struck by the difference in my mindset when I make a thing versus when people respond to the thing. In that, I don't think anybody who's ever seen me play live would go like, oh, he's pretty shy, or he's pretty timid, or whatever. I mean, especially if you come see me with the band, it can be a bit of a spectacle sometimes, and I can be a bit of a peacock, and it's just part of the fun. In solo shows, I'm very comfortable like going out into the crowd and playing unplugged, and I'll play people's houses and that kind of thing. And there is this truth about the weird thing about an artist is that they very often have low self-esteem, but some part of them also thinks that everybody should be quiet and sit down and listen to what I have to say. I heard someone, fair warning if you're watching with the kids, I have to cuss to tell you this. I heard someone refer to it as the piece of shit at the center of the universe, which is how a lot of artists think about themselves. And that rang very true for me. But it's funny because I write things and I share them because I think people either should read them or will enjoy reading them. I make this podcast because I think maybe people would want to hear me talk about this or that or the other thing. And I know for a fact that some people do. And I make records and I put them out because I think this record sounds really good. And I'm really proud of these songs and all that kind of stuff. And then when it comes to people praising me for any of that stuff, and you'll know this if you've ever given me a compliment, I shrink up and I go, oh geez, thanks, I really appreciate it, that's really nice of you. I've told this story before, but it took a few years for Tori to talk me out of talking other people out of wanting an autograph. The first few years of being a professional musician, if someone asked for an autograph, I would go, are you sure? Like, oh, come on, you don't want me to sign that. Like, and she finally talked me out of that. And it's still a bizarre feeling. That also, again, I don't want to mislead anybody. It does not happen that often. But I was sort of struck by, like, if I just have the one brain, how is it very confidently creating things and sharing them with purpose, and then when they land exactly the way I want them to land, I don't have that thing that I see other artists or creative people have, where they just feel like that's part of the process maybe, or like, yeah, people should like my record, it's a great record, like Mick Jagger now is Mick Jagger, but doesn't some part of you think that the reason he's Mick Jagger is because he's kind of been like that forever? Like, if you approached a very young Mick Jagger, fresh off tour from the first Stones record, and said, man, I love that record, it's so good, he wouldn't go like, oh, shucks, man. Yeah, I mean, we worked real hard on it. And I have the same relationship with the trappings of success, or even, not even success, I mean, like, when people want to buy something from me, like I make a t-shirt or a CD or even a podcast, and they go, hey, let me pay you for that, my impulse is to go like, oh, you don't have to do that. And I think part of that is good. I think part of that is born out of the honest truth that I made these things to be shared with people. And I also made them because I can't help it. I can't not think about things to make, shirt designs, or songs to write, or poems, or things to talk about on the podcast, or essays to write, or jokes, or whatever. But then there's this other part of me that I feel like, this is very late in the game in my life, before people liked what I was doing in a genuine way. Like, I could always make people laugh, and I might be in a band that, like, oh, these 5 people in this town really like. But when I started having a broad enough appeal that I could make a living doing this, it was very, very late in the game, like mid-30s, early 30s maybe. And I don't think I've ever done the work to kind of unpack, in addition, I'm a child of divorce, I'm the middle child, I was the, trying to think how to say this, I demanded the least attention, because I wasn't the youngest and I wasn't having any kind of issues or anything like that, really. And I think for a long time I just kind of accepted that, like, well, I'm a 5, whatever. And And now to this very day, when people say like, hey, to me, you're a 10, you wrote this song that kind of changed my life, or you said this thing on the podcast that I'm still thinking about, or whatever, it feels really good, but it almost feels like there's that imposter syndrome, you know, where it's hard to explain. I almost feel like I have to not take the credit for it because, you know, I'm not sure why I think that, but I do think that. And I want to think that less and maybe not at all anymore. Because that's the idea, right? Like if I write a song and I put it out because I think it's good, I've written songs that you have not heard because I wrote them and thought like, that's not very good. But if I put out a song and people think it's good and they want to give me a compliment, or they want to give me $1, or they want to take a picture with me or have me sign a thing, that should be good, right? Like, that should be a part of the process. That should be, because to me the success isn't about the money. It's about, I wrote this song because I liked it, and then another person liked it, and that's success. Now how they express their like of it, either with a compliment or $1 or a hug or by telling a friend or whatever, that's sort of not up to me. And that's the other tricky thing too. I feel like sometimes my very specific intent to stay connected to what I'm making and try to disconnect from anything out of my control, like how it does once it's out, I think sometimes that keeps me from really being able to feel good when the outcome is good. You know what I mean? Because very often the outcome is bad. You know, I've released a number of songs that just didn't connect with people, and I loved those songs. And if I let myself get too connected to how people respond to my stuff, that lets in a lot of hurt, you know? The last 2 weeks, podcast viewership has been down. And that's been hard, because I thought the 2 episodes before this one were some of the best things I've done. I felt really good about them, and that's the other strange thing about making stuff is you make stuff and you put it out because you feel good about it, and then some people don't like it, or they don't even see it, or they don't connect with it, and you know, you have to kind of stay out of that part of the deal. But then sometimes there's really, really good feelings to be felt in that part of the deal. So I don't know, do you err on the side of protecting yourself from people not connecting to your work? Or do you err on the side of always being open so that when people do connect to your work, you can feel that and you can feel really good about that? And or do you just have a podcast where you ramble about stuff that maybe because most people watching the podcast aren't full-time musicians, they don't really connect to? I don't know. But I have a hard time believing that anybody watching this anywhere at any age, from any background, any walk of life, doesn't relate to that feeling of like, do I deserve this praise, or do I deserve this success, or do I deserve this money, or do I deserve this crowd or this platform or whatever? That imposter syndrome is brutal, man. I got it bad. There are times I think I won't ever really be hugely successful because I can't see myself as a peer to other people who are hugely successful. I'm always sort of in a fan place. Like when I play a big theater show, I feel very confident on stage and I feel very at home and at peace and assured. It's backstage talking to the headliner about how the tour is going that I shrink and I feel very small, and I feel like that's a real musician and I'm just, you know, I'm opening for him because I was so lucky and that kind of thing. So, you know, it's a journey. It's what I'm working on. And to those of you that have connected and been supportive in any way, either verbally or sharing something or paying for something, that really means a lot to me. And those moments that I feel most fraudulent, having some hard and fast truths to recall really helps. Like, it is a fact that I have sold even now I feel embarrassed to say it. Isn't that funny? I have sold thousands of CDs. And sometimes late at night, I'm driving home or I'm laying in my bed and I feel like a fake or a fraud or a phony. I can tell myself, like, you've sold thousands of CDs. People like what you're doing. Not a million people. Your last CD didn't sell 1,000 copies. But over time, what you're doing is connecting with people and it's working. Or if podcast numbers dip, but they've dipped down to a number that, like, if I showed up at a coffee shop to play a show and that number of people came and just sat and listened, I would feel hugely successful. Or again, if people comment on the podcast or share the podcast or contribute to the podcast financially, that gives me something to remind myself of. And if all that fails, Jason Isbell gave me the nod once and said, nice. And he probably does that to everybody, but late at night, it gets me through. Chuck Reagan called me a hell of a songwriter on Twitter once, and oh buddy, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that just up here. I hardly ever tell anybody that those things happened because, again, I feel like sometimes my attempts to be humble sort of keep people from enjoying whatever successes I have with me, or keep people from... It feels good to tell someone that you like their stuff and have them go, oh, thank you very much, sort of confidently, you know? And I know, like, when people come see me fronting my band, they want me to be confident and big, and they kind of expect that, and I'm happy to deliver that. And I'm, at the same time, and I'll end it with this, I think it's important to have that voice in your head that says, hey, settle down, guy. You ain't nothing. Because that voice is kind of the governor on your ego. Because I've met other people that you can see it when you say, like, hey man, I really love that song. You can see their brain going, of course you do. It's phenomenal, and I'm phenomenal, and my mommy told me 3 times a day until I was 25 that I'm the best. And now you know I'm the best, because it's just a fact for you to learn. And I don't ever want to be like that. I'll take all the crippling anxiety and self-consciousness, please. Because I think it's easier to get something good out of those things with a little bit of work than it is to move through life with that size head and that ego. So yeah. I never know, I'm gonna let you guys in on a secret. As I'm filming these, I haven't released one that I thought was bad. Because I wouldn't have released it if I thought it was bad. But as I'm filming them, I usually have like 3 things written down. Just simple, you know, like one of the things is it just says, last pod before show. So I'm supposed to talk about, oh, this is my last podcast before I play a show. And then I just kind of stretch out and go. And oftentimes during the filming of it, I can feel a little bit like, oh, this isn't going well. Or this is too specific to your personal experience and no one's going to connect to this. Or it's not funny enough. Or it's too silly. Or it's kind of sad or whatever. And it's not focused enough, whatever. And then I have to edit this all together and then watch it to make sure there wasn't a problem with the camera or whatever. And usually when I watch it, I feel a little more confident that, like, no, that's pretty good. People might like that. But I'm having one of those mid-shoot moments where I'm like, is this too, like, rambly and too specific to you? And are they even going to believe you that you're humble and insecure? Or are they going to think, like, sure you are, buddy? I don't know. What I do know is I'm going to play you a song. And funnily enough, after just talking to you about my real-time anxieties and fears, this song is called Worrying Man. And it's one of my older ones. It's it's definitely 6 years old. And it was the first song I ever had that I was wrong about how people would receive it. It's happened a lot, usually in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. I've put out songs that I thought people were going to love, and they did not like them. But this one, I really liked, but I thought people would just kind of view as like, yeah, that's track 7, whatever. It's not one of the highlights. And a few people, this became like the song that they want to hear when they come see me play. And that feels good. And I'll play it for you now. It goes like this. Well, someday I'm gonna be where this road has been leading me. Well, someday I'm gonna leave this land that has forsaken me. Till then, well, I'll only be just a worrying man. Well, these bones, they betray me, going on now 30 years. 37, coming up on 38. And this mind's been misbehaving, giving in to all these fears. Till they leave me, I'll only be just a worrying man. Try though I might, sometimes I can't sleep at night, worrying over things I cannot change. I'm fighting with these ghosts, I'm wrestling with letting go. I'm trying to let these feet find their place. Well, these nights would pass so easy when I was a younger man. A little smoke, a little whiskey, it was morning again. Now these days I just get through them the best that I can. Try though I might, sometimes I can't sleep at night, worrying over things I cannot change. I'm fighting with these ghosts, I'm wrestling with letting go. I'm trying to let these feet find their place. All right, I think we might be a little out of tune, but I'm learning to make my peace with that. It's part of the process. I'm a real human being playing an old guitar, and sometimes they're out of tune. Let's do some recommendations. Up first, this band is called Black Twig Pickers, and this record is called Friend's Peace. I just found this on Saturday. I was at my friend's record store, and it was in one of the stacks, and I had never heard of this band. I had never, nothing. But the album art jumped out at me. The band name jumped out at me. I read some of the stuff on the back, and that jumped out at me. And then I even pulled out my phone and listened to it on Spotify for a second, which is a great use for Spotify. If you're a record shopper, you can preview almost anything in the world and then pay for it. This is kind of bluegrass. It is bluegrass, but it's very fiddle-heavy bluegrass. There's two fiddles most of the time, and it's a lot of instrumental stuff. I really, really, really love it. I would say listen to Sheets of Rain, Streams of Sun. It's track 4. It's just very good. It's real nice. I love instrumental bluegrass, and it's not always as easy to find as you might think. So check out Black Twig Pickers. If you like the fiddle, you'll really be happy with it. Up next, I was supposed to check and I forgot. I'm not sure if we've talked about this before, but we really should. Townes Van Zandt. This is his greatest hits. As I've gotten older, I've come to think that a quality best of collection is underrated. I used to think they were silly until I began to view them as, I think, what they're intended to be, which is not a minimization of the rest of a catalog, but an entry point. I got to give a friend of mine Tom Petty's greatest hits, and he had never really heard it before, and he was sort of floored, as you would be. I got to be with my wife. I love the Cars, the band The Cars. They're one of my favorites. And we were on a road trip, and this was pre-Spotify, and I just had this urge, like, I gotta hear the Cars, like, right now. So I literally, like, in the middle of Nebraska, I pulled over at a Best Buy, and I bought their greatest hits. And my wife said, oh, I'm not that familiar with the Cars. And then as we were playing through it, she's like, oh, I know this song, and I know this song, and I know that song. And she got to hear a few she didn't know. And then from the greatest hits, you can branch out. But this is a lovely collection from one of the best songwriters of all time. There's so many fantastic songs on here that even someone like me, who owns probably upwards of 10 or 15 Townes records, I enjoy this record. It's nice to put on a Sunday morning and just hear a lot of your favorite songs. So if you find yourself listening to this, check out I'll Be Here in the Morning or Rex's Blues. So good. And then if you want to move past the greatest hits, this is the first thing I ever heard from him, which is live at the Old Quarter in Houston, Texas. This might be it definitely is one of my favorite live recordings of all time. It might be my favorite live record of all time. It's got a ton of songs on it. And this is Townes Van Zandt presented as I often think of him, which is a guy with a guitar in a place playing for people and telling stories and telling jokes and playing sad songs and being lighthearted at the same time and doing this thing that he kind of perfected and that we're all just trying to sort of keep up with all these years later. Just really, really, really good stuff. This was the first thing I heard from him because my friend Andrew, this is funny, it's happened a few times with different artists. My friend Andrew listened to one of my records and he said something to the effect of like, oh, you can tell you like Townes. And I had never heard Townes. And I'm very, very thankful that he wasn't condescending about it and that I didn't just lie and go like, oh yeah, thanks, because I wanted to look cool. I went, I don't know who Townes is. And he bought me this, which is a phenomenal thing to do for a person, to buy them a record that you love. And it changed my life. I have a Townes Van Zandt tattoo all these years later. And like I said, almost all his records, I'm on a pursuit to get them all. And it was a beautiful thing. And every time I listen to this record, I have that to enjoy as well, that story of my friend sharing something he loved and making my life better with it, which I think is too rare. You know, there's all these times I find something new and I talk about like, I found this thing. And friends of mine will go like, yeah, man, I love that. And I go, why didn't you tell me? Like, I know you hate Donald Trump. I never need to hear you say it out loud again. But tell me about this band that you love that I had never really listened to, you know? And I do think that's an important part of being a music fan, too, that we could talk at length about some other time. But being willing to admit that you don't know something, even if it's cooler to know it. Say that you've never heard Townes Van Zandt and then go on a journey. And also being the kind of person that people can say that to and you won't react in a snobby way, you know, and make them feel bad for not knowing something that at one point you didn't know either. So it's a beautiful thing. There's a big old Amazon van in my driveway for some reason. I didn't order a van. But I hope you guys are doing well. It seems like very, 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 very soon we will be together and I will be playing music for you. So head to ChristopherGold.com for dates and things. There's more being added kind of all the time. And I'm doing house shows and backyards and that kind of thing. Don't stress out about having a house show if you've never had one. Don't stress out about the money. I want to come play these songs for you and your friends. And everything else, we'll figure it out. And I'm it's something I've been doing a long time, so I can handle all the here's how it works kind of vibe. You just need to buy some chips and salsa and invite some friends, and we'll sort the rest out, whatever that means. Let's be flexible. Let's just get together and play some music. I think the house shows are going to be really important moving forward for everyone's individual level of comfort, which I think is real important. We give each other lots of space to, like, this is what I feel comfortable doing, where I feel comfortable going, versus, you know, what someone else might feel comfortable doing. So house shows are a great opportunity if you're feeling like, I'd love to see some music and have some friends over, but I don't want to go to a venue or a bar or a festival. Shoot me an email, Christopher@ChristopherGold.com. We'll come to your house and I will play you some songs. That'll do it. I'll see you next week for episode 50, week 50. We'll decide if it's a big deal then. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of somebody else, be good, do some good, take it easy, hold on loosely, and we'll talk soon. Bye.